Hello and welcome to Ahead of the Curve. I am Jonathan Gilner, and thank you so much for being here. This episode is brought to you by BaseballCloud. BaseballCloud's revolutionary software platform brings to life the numbers captured by TrackMan and FlightScope. This provides colleges, players, and facility owners around the world a turnkey product, allowing them to analyze their data using key metrics and custom visualizations on one intuitive user interface. Go to baseballcloud.com to find out how you can have your own data analytics department for your program. Data has a story to tell, and BaseballCloud gives it a voice. This week, we've got 2 bonus episodes that I got from the Oklahoma Baseball Coaches Association Clinic. I've broken them up into a college episode and a high school episode, and we will still have our regular episode on Thursday with another Oklahoma high school coach and Enid High School head coach, Brad Gore. So, for bonus episode 1, we're joined by Air Force Assistant Coach CJ Gillman, South Mountain Assistant Coach Tyler Gillum, Wright State and SteelBases.com Matt Talarico, ORU Head Coach Ryan Folmar, and Oklahoma State's James Vilade. To start, here is CJ Gillman on getting 1% better in BP every day, and we may even touch on bunting. CJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Well, you just got done giving a presentation over hitting for an hour. I could have listened to you for probably 6 or 7 hours, but I hope you still got something left for us in the tank, and I really want to say thank you for coming on.
Yep. I appreciate the Oklahoma Baseball Coaches Association for having me. Number one, I had a blast doing it. It went by in a hurry, and you literally, like Superman, saved the day by clicking the video to get it to work. We couldn't get the video to work for everybody that wasn't here, but Jonathan got it working halfway through.
Well, I appreciate that. If that's the best thing that I do all weekend, I'll be pretty happy with that. But anyway, so you basically just talked hitting and how you guys do it in a team setting, and that's where most of us are. We've got 20 guys or more.
Yep.
I think I'm like 35 right now, so I'm up back there taking notes on how to do things more efficient, how to get max reps, but also be intentional with everything that we're doing. Let's just talk about what you guys do for BP, which is pretty unique. You guys are very into variable training. And so just talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So I mentioned in there that individualizing for hitters is like, that's just the door fee now. Like that doesn't make you good. That doesn't make you, exceptional. And so, you got to be able to, you're not going to be able to just like individualize for every kid every day. So how can you group them into some subsets? And then how can you change variables throughout practice to challenge different guys? But more importantly, challenging guys is important, but dialing it back a little bit and making sure that we dangle the carrot in front of the player and not, a mile in front of him to, I don't want to say give him hope, but, have him understand that like if we ask our guys to get better, 1% better every day, let's provide an environment for them to get 1% better. I don't want the kid to have to get 80% better in a day. It's not doable. So anyway, so that's what we try to do with our practice. And then I would say the other staple of it is just like mass improvement, like how, and I don't think we have it nailed down. I think, we do a good job with it, but I don't think we have it perfect yet. And so how do we have the hitter that's working getting better? And then how can we have as many other people getting better without it just being a gong show? Like, I don't need everybody doing something. Baseball's cool in that way that there's downtime. Like, downtime is part of the game. And that's what makes baseball players good is like, what are you doing in those 15 seconds between pitches type of thing? And how are we making practice look like that? That's, a big deal for us. And so I would say like our BP setting typically looks like if the weather's good, which is a whole nother story, right? You could give a whole nother hour-long presentation on that. But if the weather's good, we're going to have somebody on the field, a group on the field. And this is assuming we're not in our individual time, in the year where we're limited on time. But we're going to have a group on the field hitting. Probably, if it's a practice day, probably velo, breaking ball, angle hitting, a combination of all of them. We're going to have somebody on the field doing that. We're going to make sure that our defenders are hopefully in the right groups to be getting reads off of those pitches, off of those swings, right? Like I want my second baseman and first baseman, kind of like what Kai was talking about, like those are details that need to be thought about. They're not just accidental, right? And so there's intention to what we're doing. So anyway, putting the right defenders out there at the right time, that's sort of off topic, but
I love that.
Yeah, so when our guys are hitting on the field, then what's going on in the cages, or, what's going on in the outfield, or, whatever it is. So for us, we have a group on the field, and then there's always a group in the cages. And I'm trying to push our guys more towards and understand there's not time for everything, right? So there's not necessarily time. Like we harp on our outfielders to get as many live reps as they can. The whole, the left fielder for the Royals.
Alex Gordon.
Yeah, the whole Alex Gordon thing where it's like, you should be dirty and sweaty after BP. So like if we're encouraging that for 2 groups and there's only 4 groups and, the third one they're hitting on the field, so there's a balance to it. But hopefully there's somebody getting cage work in. But hopefully when you walk in there, you've created the culture to where like they have the machine on and they're, they have the hit tracks on or whatever it might be. Like they're not hitting tees and flips. They're hitting 70 mile an hour fastballs or 90 mile an hour fastballs. It's not, I think I probably come off as like velo, stuff, breaking ball, slider. It's because that's what gets forgotten. So we feel like we need to emphasize that. That's not all that our guys will do, but just like how many different looks can I create that are usable?
Sure.
They're beneficial. They're things that happen in a game. It's the same way where like when we have team defense, we don't work on the first and third where the guy runs and fake trips and rolls over and we work on that one time. Like, hey guys, this play might happen one time, type of thing. We don't spend 10 minutes on it. So I think in the same way, and I think that's a concept that people understand for defense, but like let's apply it to offense. Sure. So like what happens in a game, let's practice it in practice.
Well, there's a lot of directions that I'd love to go here, but I think that the first thing that people need to understand is if we're creating the culture that you're talking about, that we've gone from 1 hitting coach to 20.
Yeah.
And if you're putting the groups into people that swing like they do, like most people do, and maybe you can share with us about that process too, but so we put all like 2 older guys and 2 younger guys. So the older guys know what's going on. We don't have to explain everything a ton, but if they don't understand what's going on, then that's my fault.
Correct.
But we go from, having me running around like a crazy man trying to help everyone to, hey, your groups are going to help you better. And something that they might say is going to hit home a whole lot more than something that I'm always saying.
Yep.
I don't know if you've noticed that too.
100%. I think especially with anything, like player-to-player communication is so much more effective than coach-to-player.
Yes.
Right? You would hope to be relatable and impactful in the kid's life, and you probably will be. But if we're being totally honest with ourselves, they're gonna feel that impact like 8 years from now. They'll look back and have different coaches and bosses and people that they're like, if you did a good job, hopefully they think like, oh man, like these guys, I wish more of my bosses were like my high school baseball coach type of thing. So the impact of player to player is way bigger. Now, not every player maybe has the depth of knowledge that you have or the experience in seeing all kinds of different swings or whatever it might be. But I think a lot of times we give players not enough credit. If players want to go off on their own and do whatever they want to do, like I'm very flexible. I can think of yesterday. We were practicing yesterday, and one of our players, very good hitter, had a really good year last year, and just really struggling in practice. And the thought in my mind is like, what'd you do over break type of thing. You can't say that out loud. You know that that's dropping poison in a bucket. And it's probably not even true. He's probably having a tough day. Mm-hmm. But it's like, he's like, I'm going to do this, whatever it might be. And it's like something that I would never say and like try to encourage a kid to do. But it's like, dude, if that works, that's a real thing. Like, it's not smoke and mirrors. Like belief is a massively powerful tool. So the idea as a coach being like, get your players to buy in, get your players to coach players. I think that's massively important. And getting players to adopt your beliefs as their own ideas. Like, let them come to those conclusions, and hopefully you know, guardrail, bumpers in a bowling alley, get them kind of down the lane.
Sure.
But absolutely. I mean, and then in terms of putting hitters together that can help each other, I think it goes a really long way. You know, what we were talking about in there with failing in practice because it's difficult, overcoming that failure and then succeeding in practice. Like, that's what you step into the box in the game with real confidence. Like, that is what it is. I mean, everybody, I feel like if you're 30 years old or anywhere above or near that age, like, you know exactly what a week long of 40 mile an hour BP feels like. Yeah. You know exactly what that looks like. And then you step into the game and it's like, Michael Walker just threw it 92 miles an hour right on the black like 5 different times. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? Right? So everybody knows that feeling. And it's like for a long time, we just tried to act like it wasn't a thing. It's like, these are not the same. You know, you're asking me to do air squats and then go squat 600 pounds. You're asking me to go through the footwork and cone drills of being a cornerback and go cover Michael Crabtree. Like, this isn't how this works, you know? So that's where it helps in terms of difficult practice, failure, doing it, having success. It's very comforting sometimes for a player that's not having success to see somebody smashing baseballs, and then you can relate it back to him like, hey man, he was you 3 years ago. This isn't imaginary. This isn't an unachievable place for you. This is it's just where you're headed.
Definitely.
Play good defense along the way and you'll get some ABs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, you also mentioned this in your presentation that it's not easy to start that.
Sure.
And once you stop throwing 40, 40, 40 BP, there's some pushback because it doesn't feel good.
Yes.
But I think, and since I've been at Union this year, I think the biggest thing was just explaining, hey guys, just what you did. This is what we're going to see in a game.
Yep.
If we can master this, then every single time that we go to an at-bat, we've seen it. We've seen it before.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about variable training. Well, yesterday we've been velo, curveball machine. Well, yesterday we went soft lefty.
Yeah.
Soft lefty 8-hour lunch. It was 68.
Yeah.
From just a little bit from the left side, and it was 3 plate. So 68 from the very first plate was maybe like 75. Once they got back to the last plate, couldn't hit it. Man, so, it was tough.
Same thing happened for us on day one. Our machine blew out. I don't know what happened. The bottom motor went out. So we went to go get like an older machine that we have, but it doesn't really, it just sucks. Like, it's just not as good as the other one.
Sure.
And so the velo was just like boring. It like the bottom wheel can't keep up enough to put some carry on the baseball. So it was like sinkers, cutters, you know, all this bad stuff that we didn't want. So we adjusted on the fly, just like we talked about, like have a plan. And you don't need the bottom wheel to throw breaking balls, right? Because the bottom wheel only spins at, 3 when the top, wheels are at 10 and 7, whatever, on any 3-wheel machine. So we threw them in there, and it was the same thing. We just got our turf redone on the catcher's circle. So we had the turtle in front of the plate, way in front of the plate. So we're basically hitting from where you would like drop a bunt down. And then we put the tall legs behind the mound. So because we couldn't put it on the mound, right? Because to create any sort of normal distance, so if we put it on top of the mound, it was going to be like 40 feet, just too short.
Sure.
And if we put it on the back side of the mound, it was going to be shooting it over the press box, like, angled up.
Sure.
So we put it all the way on the back, and it was really slow because the machine's not good. And it was the normal distance, i.e. that soft lefty that gets you. We have a soft righty in our conference that just dominates people. And you're like, it's like, here we go. Like, here's the argument on Twitter for the next 80 years. Yeah. Like this one guy, it's like, we're trying to hit those and our guys are not doing it. And we have some good hitters, some guys that are supposed to hit this year that were getting crushed by it. And so it's a big deal, man. It's a big deal to be different every day or to stay on something that you struggled at and do it a day after, but it's got to be something that they're going to see. Right? Otherwise, the buy-in's out the window. So like you were talking about, it's tough to get guys to buy into it. You better plan it. Like, you better do your due diligence and plan it. You can't just be like, hey, we're going to randomly go, do this thing that, whatever, hope they buy in. It's not going to happen. You have to talk about it, relate it to how it's going to help them in a game, and then do it. And, the art of coaching, push and pull a little bit, make it harder, make it easier.
Definitely. And I think just we've got to get better. We've got to get that 1 to 3% a little bit harder every single day. That's going to push them, because it's not it's not just beating them over the head with it.
Sure.
Like, it's not like them literally.
I did that, by the way. My first year, like, we just did that. Like, It was just like, hey, you're going to swing and miss for a week? Cool. I don't think, I don't think it was the best way. No. I think it was better than the other way, than just, falsely giving them hope that they're going to be able to hit after hitting BP. But, like, I could think of a kid, he's one of my favorite players ever. He's just like, he swung and missed for a week, like a whole week. So there's definitely a better way to do it.
Right.
Especially because if their offense, bleeds into their psyche and their defense, whatever. There's a lot of different variables, and things that are happening. But it's dangling the carrot in front of them, I believe, is hugely important.
And so a couple of my takeaways, and then I've got another question to ask you. But you talked about having your position players throw BP, and to try and get the guys out. Loved that. And then you're also talking about using machines a ton in practice. Well, that's allowed me as a coach, who most of our listeners don't have a ton of them. You don't either. To walk around and actually talk with the guys and help, rather than if I'm throwing BP every single day, it doesn't allow me to do that.
Correct.
And so that's been an added benefit of, hey, somebody in your group, you're just feeding the machine, or you're going to, front toss. And that's helped a ton. But I want to know, because this is something that I struggle with a little bit, especially in the preseason. So if you could go through your BP, how many swings do you guys get every day, just in your regular practice? Because I'm like, we should go in the cage. We're going to break it up. We're going to get a ton of swings. But kids are like, I want to see ball flight. Yeah. But it's slower. So I'm trying to figure out which of those to do more of. Maybe it's a mix of both, and I'm sure it's always somewhere in between. But but to get, you get 100 swings versus 30 with BP and then live defense and all of those. So walk us through your process there.
Okay, so how many groups do you guys have typically?
It depends. It depends.
Call it 5 or 6 maybe?
Yeah, at least 6. Now,
at least 6, okay.
Well, at least 5 or 6. So,
okay.
So 5 minimum. I think 5 minimum. And that's about 4 to 5 kids per group.
Yeah.
And it depends on the day, obviously.
Sure.
But here's been my BP stations lately. We've got and we've just been inside because obviously the weather out here, it's pouring and raining.
Yeah.
But it was yesterday we did radar front toss, and then we did a front toss mix with the kids. They have time to throw a curveball, so just front toss, and then they'll mix one in like soft a really toss. Soft toss one.
Yeah.
Then we did the chaos vision drill that I was telling you about.
Yep.
T-work. We'll get on the machine and then do dry work. Well, that's a lot of reps.
Sure.
A lot of swings.
Yeah.
But at the same time, kids are like, man, I want to get out and I want to wake and rake and just freaking get out
on the field.
Right?
Yeah.
And then that allows you to play live defense. So just kind of walk me through what you guys do. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. So I would say first off, like take inventory of what you've got, right? So obviously we have a lot of machines that are available to us. So a big deal for us is like on a day, maybe our volunteer, Jimmy Raysinger, throws like the most money BP if you watch the home run derby in the summer.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was throwing BP to him. So like, I mean, he can do anything with a ball in BP. And so it allows us a lot of freedom. And so like, I understand that not everybody maybe has that luxury. I mean, if it were just me, so we have obviously me and Jimmy working with the hitters. And if it were just me, like if I throw all day, I'm not throwing the next day.
Right.
Like
exactly.
I'm not. It's not going to happen. So, take inventory of what you've got. Now, if you've got one guy that can really control a baseball and throw BP and kind of do whatever he wants with it, find a strike zone, set up a strike zone somehow. Those 9 pocket nets I think are great, but it doesn't have to be that, right? And don't waste that guy, the guy that can really do something in BP. Like make sure he is, because here's what I ran into last year and years past. Like I've always thought that, obviously I'm biased with our hitters, but like I feel like we are like very good hitters to what we know is coming, like a machine.
Sure.
So like 80, 90, 95, like I think we're in the upper echelon of that category of ability to do it. But what we would do in a game is swing at everything. I mean, everything. And so double-edged sword a little bit with it. So where I think the guy that can really throw BP, if you have that available to you, is the competition aspect of it. The yes, no, swing, take, fastball, breaking ball, All the great drills, like I think you've even talked about them before, where it's like 5 pitches in a round, one of them's a breaking ball. Like there is no better way, at least in my opinion yet, other than in-game reps, there's no better way to teach a kid how to hit 3-0, because it's a skill, how to not get too big, how to swing at the right pitches. There's no better way to do it, I don't think, than a drill where you get 5 pitches and one can be a breaking ball.
I love that.
And because it teaches, especially if you get that breaking ball in the second pitch, like you better hammer those next 3 pitches or it's embarrassing. Like, how are you not on time for this fastball? That type of thing. So if you have a guy like, like we've got Jimmy that can do that, use that. Use that as much as you possibly can. And even to the point of like, maybe, he could throw every day, but if he couldn't, right, it cut down his load by having him really, really compete with your guys that are going to be on the field that year, with the guys that are going to matter that year, because that's only going to be 9 to 12 guys or, whatever it would be. And if you're a high school, right, like we want your JV to be good, but like it's not as important as the varsity being good. Let's just be honest. We got to make decisions. So like cut down his workload to where he's competing every single day, not every single day, as much as you possibly can with those guys. So in saying that, right, I would have something going on in the field. That's a great thing you can do in a cage. Now, you don't have to, like, you want your guys to want to hit off the machine on the field and like see their success. Sure. Right? So if you're trying to create buy-in with your guys, start with the easier ones, right? Go outside and hang breaking balls on the field and have them mash. And it's like, cool. Hitting off the machine's cool. Nice. Don't go day 192, like all easy to pick up all the balls because they're all on the turtle at the end of the day. Yeah. So great way to create buy-in. So to get back to your original question, for BP, keep your thumb on the pulse of your team as far as how many swings they're taking. Now we're limited by time in college, and I think probably in high school too. Like, I've never left thinking like, God, our guy swung way too much. The only time that happens is when we have an all indoors day and they have like 3 cages going and they're hitting for 45 minutes of hitting off of a machine might get a little tiresome type of deal. But like, so keep a gauge on it and try to, if you can create a competition with a BP thrower, a breaking ball and a fastball, it's a great day, especially drills where like takes are good reps. So like,
I picked that up,
so if it's like, good take, like 1, tell them, but 2, like that's a positive rep. So if you're doing a 5-pitch round, that counts. Make sure it counts, and so that they know it. And so we're we're lightening their workload without them even really paying attention to it.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's something that I just took from you just a minute ago. You are really getting what you want, because half of our time the guy is standing in the box and he doesn't move his hands at all, and he's like
yeah.
And so
the Jeter take.
Yeah. Just I'm not going to move my hands, but I'm going to try and keep up. But I really like that a lot. And so something that I've also been struggling with a little bit is, so we love to mash baseballs. Yep. Right? We love it. Like, that's part of our culture. We want to hit the ball hard. Yep. And we want to hit it in the gaps. And
like that culture.
And so mostly, yeah. And so, but I've really been struggling with, okay, so we're in the 7th. We got runners at first and second, and we've got to get a bunt down.
Yes.
Like it's maybe our 1-hole or 2-hole, like one of our better hitters, but we've got to get them moved over to win the game.
Yes.
So we've got to practice it.
Yes.
But what is the relation of practice of that while not taking away from mashing baseballs?
Yes.
That's something else I've been struggling with.
Yes. I don't know that we've perfected it for sure. I know what we do is we take our guys that are most likely to bunt. Like, we do have a guy in our lineup that I will not. I truly believe that it's not a pride thing. I truly believe our chances for success are better if he's swinging than if he's bunting type of deal. I think if the guy's on first, he's in scoring position for this guy. And it's we probably have 2 or 3 of them. You know, I think someday, I don't know if numbers can clearly define it yet. I think there's a little too many variables, like who's hitting and what's the situation and who's pitching and all these different things. But like, bunt is something we try to do in early work.
Yeah.
I don't think it's effective in like hand thrown BP. I don't think it's an effective deal. But I do think where it is really effective is if you can make them go the first pitch of a round. Now, it's great because it allows them to time. One, they're getting on time. and 2, they're working on their bunt skill. But, and maybe it's just me, but like every time they do it, I'm like, God, it feels like we could have had 2 swings in that time, you know? And so 1, like probably properly dialing your brain into like, no, this is something we have to do, number 1. And number 2, like if you can just do it at a different time, like early work, I think is a great time for it. If you can get your guys out there, and hopefully there's 6 guys in your lineup that might be bunt guys. And like, it's doable to get 6 guys to early work. I think bunting is best done in mass quantities, you know, and whereas I don't know that that's the best way to acquire a skill. Maybe identify who your better bunters are. You know, one of our kids, you know, must have bunted his whole life because like he bunted a ton his freshman year.
Yeah.
He was an unbelievable catcher, unbelievable defender. And it was like, dude, you're going to hit in the 9 hole. If there's anybody on base, I don't care if there's 0 or 1 out. It's like your job. If there's 1 out, your job's to get him to second. So if our leadoff guy singles, like we're getting him in. I mean, that's just how it is because all he wanted to do, like he's slow, you know, so if he rolls over, it's a double play. If he strikes out, it's no good, you know, so certainly that happens, you know, and I think categorizing guys' talents and doing that. But where I think gets missed the most is the drag bunt.
Oh, I love drag bunt.
Especially if you're known as a team that hammers baseballs, especially if you play on turf or places where it's easy for guys to shift and shade. Like if you can't drag bunt, you've got a big hole in your game. And it bothers me when our guys can't do it.
Right.
Then I have to step back and be like, did we work on it?
Right.
Did I ask them to do it? Did I force them to do it? Whatever it might be. Like nothing is more exciting to me than when I'm recruiting a kid. If he can play defense and he hits a home run and drag bunts for a hit in the same game, I think I'd be like, you know, boom. Do I need a shortstop? Oh, yeah, let's go. Do I need a first baseman? No, whatever. I still want that kid. Like that's a guy you want. And so it's like you have to make time for it.
You can't defend that guy.
That's true. Well, that's true too. But like, if you want to be a good bunter, you better make time for it.
Right.
So, and that's hard. It really is hard. Like, it's a struggle for me. I'm like, we have to do this because we're gonna do it.
And like you said, I'm the exact same way. And so, Coach Newkirk, who you met earlier.
Yep.
So we've started a circuit at the beginning of practice because we've got 3 teams and we've got about 20 guys per team.
Okay.
And so what we'll do is we've broken them up into 4 groups, and they're about 15 guys a group. And so he's got like one station is base running. So we're knocking it out base running, and he's got his hands on those guys.
Yep.
And then we've got our arm care station. And so they go to arm care station, they get all their plow ball work done. Then we've got a bunting station, and then we've got another station that does just whatever else we feel like we need to. If we need to go over team defense stuff, we'll talk to them there, or whatever, or Andy D. But in our bunting station, we've got a machine on close to the mound, and then one behind the turtle, and so they're just rolling around.
Yeah,
but that's not taking it away from their swings and BP, which is nice.
Yeah,
and then the other. So that's just something that I've stumbled upon, and you're talking about early work, which is similar.
Yeah.
And then after 8 minutes, we rotate. Gives them, a minute to get there and a minute to explain what's going on or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the other one, and you hit on this too, is the first pitch to get it down.
Yeah.
And now I've started to do, if you don't get it down, you have to wait till you get it down to swing.
Yeah.
And so that's going, shoot. Okay. Because what happened to me as a player, I love to drag bunt, but I'm going, okay, let me just... All right. And then whether or not I got it down or not, I'm still swinging. I'm ready to rake. Yeah. So it's just something of that carrot that you're dangling in front. Hey, if you want to swing, if you want to take a bunch of swings, here you go.
Yes.
I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but that's just 2 things that I've stumbled upon lately that I've been throwing out for our guys. It's like, if the game's on the line and you have to do it, it's important.
Yep.
But for most of the year, when does that happen? 3 or 4% of the time that we really need to move the guys over to win a game? I mean,
well,
but it's important.
Yeah, and there's like a very fine line to walk of, I mean, I'm telling you, like if we're bunting in our offense, like if we're bunting, everybody knows.
Yeah.
Like your neighbor that just came to his first baseball game knows
and
it's going down.
Sack bunting,
correct. Not drag bunting. Sure. Yeah, only sack bunting. And so, especially at our field, like I don't know if it's better to bunt. Like and so for us, it's like, practice it as much as it happens in a game. So you know where it's going to happen? San Diego.
Yeah.
Night game. Like if you can hit a ball out of their place at night, you're a grown man. And so everything that goes in the gaps hangs up and guys catch it. San Jose, places that play like that, UNLV if the wind's blowing in type of deal. So it's just like, yeah, you got to balance. If it's important, I think, I don't know. I don't want to say don't get mad at the kid for not getting his bunt down because, like, dude, get your bunt down. I think especially for coaches, I would imagine most coaches probably were decent bunters because you just paid attention.
And that's why we're coaches now, because we couldn't hit.
I agree. That's exactly right. And that's the point, is that, like, a lot of bunting is probably just, like, attention to detail with it. So maybe it's not a practicing bunting thing. Maybe it's a creating something where kids are going to pay attention thing. I don't know that there's a perfect answer for it, but I do know that if you can create the drag bunt as a tool and guys think it's cool to be able to do it along with bang, like, if you're a better drag bunter, you're going to be a better sack bunter. The principles are similar, so just like make it a deal where people want to do it. It's the same way when you're trying to buy in or create buy-in for hitting off of a machine. Have them, when they get better, they're going to want to do it more. Our guys love hitting off the machine. They'd go and set it up in the middle of the summer on their own now. And so do that. Find a way to do that with your drag bunting. I think that's where, like, you don't get credit for just, like, telling people to do things. That's not coaching. That's not leadership. That's being a dictator.
Right.
That doesn't work.
Right. Absolutely. Well, CJ, I appreciate your time, man. And it's funny that probably a third of our time we talked about bunting, which is crazy. Crazy to think that. But it's just been something like, I know you're in the team setting and I am too. And we have similar philosophies offensively where we want to crush baseballs. But that's something that I've struggled with lately. But
absolutely.
Anyways, well, I appreciate you having you on. And is there anything else you want to talk about before we go?
I don't think so, man. I touched on it in there. Like, just as a whole, as a coaching community, like, we got to just, like, quit trying to figure out who's right and just try to figure out what is right, and what's best, because there's a lot of energy, just in coaching in general, used on, like, you got to check your ego type of deal, otherwise you won't get that buy-in from your players. And I think if, like, it's our job as coaches to, like, start cultivating that, that culture, so that, like, we can move forward and be better. We want to be
better.
Yeah, we want, And I mean, I guess you want your team to be better and other teams to be worse, but definitely. It's kind of like, high seas raise all boats. So it's just like, let's get everybody better and kind of progress what we're doing.
Definitely. I love it. Well, CJ, thanks again. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Let me take a few seconds to tell you guys about OnBaseU. OnBase University is an organization that studies how the human body moves in baseball and softball. They offer certification seminars that teach coaches, trainers, and medical professionals how to assess an athlete's physical ability to perform movement patterns that are specific to hitting and pitching. For example, they just put up a blog post on their website, onbaseu.com, that discussed why hip internal rotation is important in hitting and how they evaluate it with their OnBaseU screen. If you want to learn more about OnBaseU, I did a podcast with the OnBaseU founder, Dr. Greg Rose, episode 78, and he talked about how he modeled the screen after golf assessments that he created for TPI. They are hosting pitching and hitting seminars in Phoenix, Newark, and Houston over the next few months. I will be attending one soon, and I hope to see you there. Here's Tyler Gillum on the Growth Toolbox, infield play, and a little bit of green light special. Tyler, welcome to the show.
What's up, brother? Glad to be here.
We're not shoveling sunshine today.
Yeah, definitely. We are learning to swim out here. It is definitely underwater. If it was doing this in Arizona, then schools would probably be canceled. Everybody would be freaking out. So, yeah.
Well, you're not a stranger to this growing up in Oklahoma, so how's it feel to be back?
It's great to be back, seeing a bunch of buddies coming up here to ORU's campus is awesome. Great turnout here for the high school coaches. Awesome speakers so far. CJ killed it this morning. Wes is finishing up right now on stage, and he's doing a really good job. But seen some old coaches and seen some old friends and catching up a little bit, so it's been really good.
I've actually gotten to hear some stories about you as a high school kid.
It's
been really good, so we'll just go ahead and keep those off the mic.
Hope those were all right.
But, man, so tell us about your new venture. I guess it's an old venture, but a new name, and that's the Growth Toolbox. So talk to us a little bit about that.
The Growth Toolbox. So It originated somewhere around 2015. We just took a look at our program and said, how can we take the next step? I spoke at the National Convention 2016 on it, and then we've been doing it for 3 years now. So it's been unbelievable for us. 3.4, 3.5 team GPA every year. Last year, we had the best winning percentage we've ever had in conference. We were 30-6 overall and won the conference. Just team leadership skills, time management skills. And I think we had like 10 or 11, 12 D1 guys last year. And right now we have 11 D1 commits for next year. So we got a good sophomore class. And it's been huge for us moving forward, developing life skills and developing skill acquisition on field. So it's been fun.
Yeah, no doubt. And you're always talking about we've got to build a man first and build a better baseball player after that. And so I loved how you broke it down week to week. And to be honest with you, I don't know if you're going to try and sell it in the future, but can you give us maybe one of those weeks where you're talking about, so you have like a main topic, and can you just kind of share with how you go about teaching the main topic?
Yeah. So really, everybody always asks for a curriculum. Like, hey, do you have the curriculum? And I really don't. I have a bunch of topics.
Sure.
And I think it works best because it depends on your program. Every program has different obstacles and problems, and every week is different. So, if we're doing, the week on perspective or visualization or imagery or meditation or something like that, it might not make sense that week if you're following a curriculum. But,
Sure.
So what I basically try to do each week is I have a bunch of topics. I've been doing it for 3 years now. I just try to steal from some of the best motivational speakers, coaches, business people in the world, people that are highly successful, and see, if we can put together some common denominators and see if that can help our guys moving forward. And it has. But the best way to do it is to assess your program of what's going on in that moment, in that week, and figure out what's the best for us right now. Because you know what? Visualization and imagery might not be the best thing right now.
Yeah.
Maybe nutrition. Maybe we need to break down a nutritional plan, talk about meal prepping, talk about your macros and micros, and so on and so forth. But I think some of the biggest weeks or topics is like the goal setting exercise, starting there. I think that gets us going in the right direction, creates some common goals, creates some common values, and really gets us on a path of where we need to go. And not just as a team, but also as individuals and as players. And, moving on from that, okay, we figure out where we need to go. Let's figure out how we're going to get there. And let's figure out our daily routines and habits that are going to match that in order to get to that telescope goal. And, there's a lot of other things involved, but that goal setting exercise and that team, that time management is two big ones for sure.
Definitely. I wish, you're sitting here talking about nutrition and especially time management. To be honest with you, looking back, I wish I'd have had something like that going into college because I was not prepared at all.
Yeah, we're still trying to probably figure it out right now, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we ever stop doing this, So when I'm teaching this course, we have this, this team get together basically, like we're sitting around the campfire and we're all learning from each other. I like to get our players up and teach too, but this isn't just for me setting up and lecturing to them. It's like what I'm learning in the moment, and I'm going to share some things with these guys, because if I'm getting better at 32 by listening to whatever podcast I'm listening to or book I'm reading, if I'm learning something, then I know I can teach them something. So, it's not just for them; it's also for me. And I put out a tweet the other day that whoever does the most work, they learn the most. Whoever puts in the most time to teach it is the one learning, So I try to get them up learning too as well, and give them some resources as books or podcasts too as well. So that time management piece, we're always trying to get better at it.
I used to think that I was pretty good at it. Then we had a baby. So I had to reevaluate how good at time management I actually was. And that's something that definitely threw me a curveball.
Absolutely.
So
there's a lot of planning and then adversity and then responding to what you're going to do next.
Yeah, that was the event.
Yeah.
Now I'm working on my response.
Like see how that outcome comes comes along, you never know when you got to change that diaper every once in a while.
And you'll get into that soon, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
But so tomorrow, you're going to be talking about base running. And I spoke with Jay Guy about this last weekend.
Actually, I'm talking about infield play tomorrow.
Oh, that's right.
We can talk base running, of course.
Let's do both.
Because I love the green light special. I love infield play.
I could have sworn you were doing green light special, but let's talk about that anyways. Green light special. So, Tyler, say I'm not a good base running coach. Yep. Probably not.
Yep.
How do we get our guys to be better base runners besides just, okay, let's go over it every day, but how do we prepare them for game situations where they are confident enough to be smartly aggressive? Like, how do we get that? Because you did it last summer with guys who you didn't have all year long.
Absolutely.
And so I'm sure that was a learning period too. But how did you give them enough trust into them as to where, because you guys stole 1,000 bags last summer or something crazy.
We had a good group of guys. So we ended up having 156 on the summer. I think that was in 52 games. We had one player that had 37, 37 stolen bases. He probably played in 40 games or something, maybe less than that.
Wow.
But just really instinctual, really good player, fast guy, So part of it's recruiting. Okay, you got to go find those right guys, and we do try to find those right guys that they can run a little bit, but they can also run a ball in the gap, and they can play multiple positions. So it's tough to find that type of guy, but that's hey, that's the guy that's getting drafted.
Yeah.
So
we don't have too many guys.
So it is definitely unique, but we do try to find guys that can run and maybe have one or two other qualities. The recruiting part starts it, but being transparent and being really, the first 3 days, we had 3 days to talk in Savannah before our first game. And we had 3 small practices, 2-hour practices. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to put in some small things. You don't want to throw in a bunch of stuff in the summer. So my biggest thing is this. You got to talk about it, and you got to set the environment. Mm-hmm. If you set the environment mindset-wise, the name Green Light Special, hey, you guys are getting freedom. Okay, these are some things that we're going to talk about.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
That, hey, man, we got a Green Light Special.
Yeah.
Cool.
So they buy into that, and if it's a guy that already runs, he already comes to us and he had 15, 20 stolen bases at school, oh, you mean I can go anytime I want? Yes. If it's there, if the window is open, it makes sense. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to stay on the attack. Our goal is to put pressure, as much pressure on the defense as possible, make those guys play catch, and pressure burst pipes a lot of times. So you have to create that. And when they get thrown out or they mess up, you just got to pat them on the butt and go, hey, what did you do wrong here?
Sure.
Or what does this look like? And let's talk through it a little bit. Versus guys, you get thrown out. Let's say guy on second base, runner on second base, and you're going to steal third. And it's 2 outs and he gets thrown out. You can lose your mind right there in front of 4,500 people and be like, what are you doing? And that guy's never going to run again. So you're putting up a barrier for him going forward, because mentally he's like, man, coach is going to take me out of the game. So for me, I'm like, hey, stay aggressive. Guess what? Next time you get on second base, just know you got to have a better jump next time you go. A good lead, good jump. So that's something we talk about. And then really for the summer, we're playing every day.
Right.
So you try to take some videos. All of our games are taped, so they're online. So you can go over and review some stuff. That didn't happen too much, but it's in our environment. It's constantly talked about. Green light, green light. This is what you're looking for. This is what this guy does. This is his tendency, and everybody starts talking about it. So we go into the game all right, who's gonna get 5 bags?
Yeah.
So it's really more than anything the environment that you create and the mindset that you create. And then it kind of builds from there.
I love that. And so we've got a bunch of guys who probably haven't been taught something similar, may not be the athletes that you've got either. So say we're speaking a typical high school coach who has some guys who can do this and yada, yada. But so how would you go about just, teaching maybe the younger guys? Because you work with some younger guys at a bunch of different camps and stuff like that. How do you go about teaching aggressiveness to them, or maybe some keys to look for? Because I think that's the main thing. It's okay, I can be aggressive, but Coach, tell me what I'm trying to look for here, and tell me what I'm trying to see.
Sure. I think more than anything is you got to work on it every day. We were talking about it before we started the podcast. Coach with Josh Garcia, and he really brought the day-to-day, doing it every single day, 10 minutes to 15 minutes, and scheduling it out. So, like, just fits one piece in every day. So you build off that over time. Like, when you're 12, you're not going to get some of that stuff. But, like, if you're 12 and you know how to get a primary lead and a secondary lead, that alone right there is going to be – like, some guys come to us in college and they've never been taught primary lead or secondary lead. They don't know how to get a secondary lead. They don't know – so there's some of those that come. Some of it's just basic stuff, but doing it every day. But what I always go back to, and if it's infield or if it's hitting or base running, the visual recognition that you get is the key to it all. That's why reps are massive. That's why that's why I believe in the 10,000 hour rule. You seeing it, recognizing it, and locking that into your brain is going to give you that rep that you need of, let's just say, if you're a base runner at second base and you're trying to steal third and you're not very good at reading an inside move yet.
Yeah.
The more times that you see that, you start picking up tendencies like, oh, he slowed down in his motions, his leg didn't go as high, his hands move differently. Some of that's subconscious, so you don't even like recognize, you can't even explain it. That's why the majority of like good hitters, they can't explain why they're a good hitter.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff is just subconscious. So doing it every day, seeing it, speaking it, getting it visually for those players, I think is just the big thing, just reps.
Right. Probably most, and including myself, don't do it enough. I mean, I think that's the biggest takeaway from talking to you and Jay Gaw and talking to Matt Talarico. And the good ones do it every day.
Yep.
I mean, just like anything. We
It's
play catch every day.
You do it every day.
Right.
If
Absolutely.
bathing is important, you do it every day.
Hopefully most people are. Exactly. And so I'm actually using your hockey drill. I think it was hockey drill. I can't remember. Goalie drill.
Goalie drill.
Yeah. I'm actually using that in my presentation tomorrow.
Love it.
So just talking about helping kids to make decisions on what they're trying to do in practice.
That's awesome.
And so let us know, what are a couple keys that you guys are doing for your infield stuff, and just hit us with what you got.
Yeah. So, my passion's infield play. I was an infielder growing up, so just the little things. I think starting with prep step, you can go watch high school games and little league games, and you might see, like from a recruiting standpoint, I might see a shortstop get one ground ball during the game. There's 150 pitches that he has to play defensively. So what I watch is his body language. I watch his prep step. So his prep step, is he on time? Is the balls of his feet hitting the ground while the ball's entering the strike zone? And can he stay locked in like that? So again, going back to the eyes and being visual, is he watching the hitter? Is he locked in? Is he in rhythm? Is he landing at the right time? And if he is, then he can move. So if he's got that, we can build off of that. There's a lot of guys that I'll just mark off because they'll probably miss like 30, 40 prep steps in a game. And if you miss your prep step, you're going to miss your first step. So we talk about that a lot. Prep step is huge, but the visual piece of it, of understanding where the ball's going to go and anticipating where the ball's going to go before it's actually hit, what the pitch is being called, how the hitter's body is moving. You look at, tennis players and they're receiving serves at 150 miles an hour and they're getting to a prep step and they're having to return the serve that's hit 150 miles an hour at them. So if they wait till the ball is hit, they're not going to hit that ball. Their body's not going to be moving in the proper way. So what they actually do, and sports scientists have studied, is where the eyes are actually located on the core and their rotation, and they start picking up earlier to anticipate where the ball's actually going. So I think the best infielders do that. You'll see some of the best infielders start moving in the direction of where the ball's hit before it's even hit when you slow down video. I think those guys are really unique. I think a big piece of that is to have your infielders do that in batting practice every single day. So they don't even have to fill the ground ball some days. Some days just be like, hey, you know what? You're going to try to get a prep step every single time over the 3 rounds. Really so, and making that adjustment. It's not easy to do. The best infielders that I've coached, the best shortstops that I've coached, take live ground balls full speed every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's the truest ground ball you get, you know. Then you're talking about your prep step, your first step, your angles. And then, you know, one thing I didn't talk about in the 10,000-hour rule today is, like, talking about Troy Tulowitzki. You know, all of our guys, like, I want to play professional baseball. And so watching what his daily routines and habits are in BP every single day. So my buddy is the bullpen catcher for the Blue Jays. So I got to get on field and watch them take BP and watch Troy Tulowitzki go through his infield routine, 3 different games. And it was a year and a half. All of these games were within like a year and a half. So different times of the year. But anyway, he takes 30 ground balls every BP round. Okay, so it starts in 162 games.
Wow.
30 ground balls, and they're specific. It's not like I'm taking the same ground ball right at me every single time. It's not that. He starts infield in. He starts working back. Then he'll start turning double plays to his forehand, turn double plays to his backhand, and then his signature play where he makes the backhand, throws across his body into the 6-hole, that play, and everybody's like, dude, that's a web gem. He makes that play 3 times before every game. So if you take 162 games times 3, he's made that game. That play's routine now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is the biggest thing, trying to recreate game-like actions and catch play, short hop progressions, your daily vitals every single day, going into prep steps, leading into your post-catch, 2-step, 4-step patterns, and your decision-making. I think those are just some keys to infield play.
I love it. And something that I've been trying to do on top of that, and it's something that we talk about it a lot, like we want to get our kids to be better communicators. Right, and especially starts with catchers and infield. So, you know, we want them to communicate what's going on, communicate how fast the runner is, what the situation is. Hey, we're coming here, we're going there. But I've taken that for granted, and so I tell them they need to be good communicators. But in the past, I haven't told them what to say. Sure. And so if you and I'm sure you know this way better than I do. You can go to a game and watch how an infielder talks and know how good of a player he is. So if there's some listeners, and selfishly for me, what should the infielders be talking about? What are some good ideas to help them become better communicators and just to know what to say?
Absolutely. So what we do, we have a soft focus and a hard focus. So soft focus is in between pitches, that 12 to 15 seconds in between pitches. In that soft focus, what we're talking about is who's on base, how fast they are, and how fast the runner is at the plate. So what we'll call out of the dugout is like 42, 43, 45. That is the representation of how fast the guy gets down to first base. So if the guy at home plate is a 4.5 runner to first base, we'll yell 45. The infield will go around the infield, be like, hey, 45 runner, 45 runner. And then from there, it's communicating on what situations are happening. You might be hooking at second baseman, hooking up with the third baseman. Hey, here, easy flip in the middle with the middle infielder. You might be talking with the pitcher, talking about you got him coming back. You might be hooking up with a outfielder. You might tell the outfielder, you know, if it's the third AB of the hitter, you're like, hey, you know, this guy slices a lot, or this guy was late a lot. We might need to readjust him. I think just talking in general, I had Hunter Wilson this summer. He played at Arkansas. He's from Spiro, Oklahoma.
Oh, nice.
He's hilarious. Nickname's Cowboy. He's he played for us with the Bananas, and he played for me with the Bombers in the past. But this guy's 100 miles an hour all the time. But I love him because he's always talking. He's always in the game. And you know, the first game that he was playing second base, and our shortstop came back in and said, "Gillum, does this guy ever shut up?" And then they ended up being best friends after that. But those little tendencies of understanding time of the runner, understanding when, understanding the sun, understanding how to communicate. Like if you do lose a ball in the sun, do you practice that?
Yeah.
All of those little, I think just communicating at all times keeps us locked into the game. Yeah. But helps us stay aware of any plays that are going to happen in the future too.
No, and it's something that we've just recently started doing it because we've been able to practice after school. We get an hour until December 1st, and it's something that they never really thought of. And the more that they do it, the more comfortable they're doing it. And you'll see them hey, I got you right here. Or especially if somebody makes a bad play, they're like, hey, you're all right. Just talking and just being confident with your teammates and just talking to them like you talk to them in the dugout. And
I think the biggest thing,
huge.
I think the biggest thing, I want to touch on this because understanding the proper way to talk to and how you can visualize it. For instance, a guy's walking, or a pitcher has a 3-0 count. Mm-hmm. Don't be saying, hey, don't walk this guy.
Sure.
The word don't doesn't reside in our brain very well. We can't visually see that. So, like, hey, give me a ground ball. I can visualize that. Mm-hmm. Hey, throw a ball in the outer half. Pound the zone. Pound the bottom of the zone. Hit the catcher's mitt. Something that they can visually see is huge. And always staying positive. Just always staying positive, but also with your body language, because it doesn't whisper, it definitely screams. Yeah. So especially after you make an error. Like one of our things at South Mountain, if you make an error in practice, you have to automatically get back, hit me another one. Mm-hmm. So it's getting your mind back to going of where you're at, and I don't have time to pout. I don't have time to worry about it. I got to get to the next pitch. So anytime you hear our guys, if you came to our practice and there was a ball that's bobbled, Gillum, hit me another one. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So
I like that.
So I think that's a big piece of it too.
Oh, for sure. And like you said, baseball beats us down enough as it is. So having teammates pick you up in a time that you need to, man, that could be the difference between winning the next batter or not. So, but anyways, round 2 with you. It's been awesome. I love the yellow uniform. I can't wait to see your presentation tomorrow. And is there anything else you want to talk about before we go?
No, man, you've been killing it on this podcast, man. I'm just happy to be on here. How many podcasts?
81 right this week.
81, man. Mm-hmm. So it seemed like yesterday we were just
week 1. You were week 1.
Yeah, doing week 1. Me and Ryan. Ryan was over at the house the other day cooking steaks. Ryan. Him, JT McGuire, and Kai. So it was a good group of
5.
Those guys, man. It's it's fun. It's fun doing this stuff, but, just like anything else, we all, it's awesome what you're doing. And,
appreciate that.
Learned a lot from the podcast and happy to be on it. And glad we can share and see if we can make somebody else better.
Absolutely. Appreciate that.
Awesome, brother. Good to see you, man.
Here's Matt Talarico on all things base running.
Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Well, you're one of my favorite guys to follow about kind of a specific topic, and we're talking about base running today. I'm sure you've gotten a lot of that in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I've been lucky. I got to speak a couple times in New Jersey, and then at the ABC in Dallas, and obviously here I get to meet a lot of cool coaches that I didn't knew who I was. So it's cool. We get to talk a lot about base stealing. We get to talk about a lot about baseball, so it's fun.
For sure. And before we got started, you mentioned that you are developing a book that may be out in the next couple of months. So let's just start with that.
I'm trying. Okay. So I'm going through this publishing and printing process. Everything else is done. I've had a lot of great people help me finish it. So you can't do something like this on your own if you're a baseball coach. So, Denton Sagerman helped formatting. Justin Deadman helped me out. Really people way smarter than I am to just help through the process. But I'm proud of it. I think, it covers pretty much everything, and I'm just looking for the best way to get it out now. So I'm hoping in January, but yeah.
Oh, that'll be awesome. And I'm looking forward to that as well. But so I listened to you at the ABCA, and you did a fantastic job. The presentation was very, very good. And so my head coach and I were like, man, so how do we implement his stuff? Now, I know you have a website, stillbases.com, and you do a fantastic job on there. But
thank you.
Let's say that let's just go from today on. So say that I wanted to implement, your base 1 stuff, so your level 1 foundational stuff in the next couple of weeks. Can we start with first base?
Yeah. I think the main thing is you have to be willing to put the time in practice.
Okay.
Like right now, if you know this, you can't just make it a priority. Don't do it, right? Because it's just enough to get you in trouble.
Sure.
So some of the things we do, like basic things, and Coach Lovelady at UCF, when I came over at Wright State, I remember sitting with him and saying, hey, can we move base stealing to the very start of practice? Like right when they're getting unstretched, they're kind of ready to go. First, we all have this thing. We all have this idea, depending on the program you play, like when practice is over, from our habits as coaches to make schedules. So at the end of, let's say, batting practice, you end with the majority of the time. Well, when they get done with batting practice, practice is over. Mm-hmm. And when you throw in like
mentally?
Yeah, mentally, whether they're there or not,
sure.
Right? So if you throw in like, hey, we're going to do an extra 15, 20 minutes of base running, base stealing, they're gone. They're going through the motions, and we need them there. So number one, if you can't make it a priority, and that's fine. People can win without doing that. There's a lot of teams that do that. But if you're interested in what we're doing, that's number one.
Okay.
Number two is teach them the foundations of how to get a lead off. And more than anything, teach them how to measure using their steps and their footwork.
Okay.
So when I was in college, I can remember when I was 13 years old, actually, that was the first time we were able to get a lead off. And the local high school, Snyder High School in Fort Wayne, sent some players over, and they taught us how to get a lead off, a secondary, how to get back to the base. That was really the last piece of information I got about base stealing until I got like Jason Smith in college at Manchester, and then Derek Woodley, who's the head coach at Defiance, two great coaches. But I can remember Coach Woodley talking to me after I got picked off once, that I should look at different ways to get a lead off. And then I started thinking about base stealing a little bit from that day. But cool. So after you get the foundation, how can you repeat it?
Right.
And for me, that's the very basic stuff.
Okay.
And that's not the cool stuff I get to talk about today. And that's not why, I feel like coaches ask me a bunch of questions, but that's the best stuff. Okay. It doesn't seem like it, but if you want to do some of the fancier things, you have to have that groundwork in. So that's where I'd start. Master the groundwork. And then after you're like, okay, our guys can do this with their eyes closed, then we start adding some stuff.
Okay. And something that I struggled with, I was a guy who could run a little bit, not a good base stealer. The only reason I stole bases, some of them, because I could run. And so I didn't have that anticipatory reaction that you see a lot of your guys, you've been able to train that. And so when I didn't know what I was looking at first, like when I was going, I would just wait for a big leg kick and then I would just take off. Yeah. So are there some things that you can share with us about what you share with those guys about what they're trying to pick out and look for?
Yeah. Well, first, everybody's different. And I think it's important that, like, if you have a hitter who's struggling, you get him in the batting cage. If you got a base runner, base stealer who's struggling, you tell him in front of the whole team, stop getting picked off.
Yeah. Or you get mad at them.
Yeah, there's such a big difference, right? And I think first it's like you've got to treat guys as individuals. You got to be able to get them away from the group, and you got to talk to them about, like, hey, look, what are you going through right now? What are you seeing? What are you looking at? We look at their stance and their setup. And I think the main thing is guys try too hard to look for something.
Okay.
I think guys look for, like, magic. I'm going to look at his heel. I'm going to look at his shoulder. I'm going to look at his build. Our center fielder says it best. Like, he tries to look through the pitcher. Okay. If he can see the stands behind the pitcher, he knows his eyes are relaxed. And it doesn't seem to make sense, but when you play shortstop, you don't look at the contact point. You look at the hitter, you look at the catcher, you can see the umpire, so you can get a good reaction. If you're staring at the contact point, your reaction's always delayed because you're shocked when it came to you. Right. So I think number one, just being able to relax a little bit.
Yeah.
And say, well, you don't always need, like, the best jump. So right when the pitcher picks up his foot this much, I'm off. You don't always need that. In fact, some of the best jumps you see in pro ball, I'll play video, which is helpful for guys, that they don't start moving till the foot's up a little bit. Okay. And they're not trying to get the perfect jump. If you try to get the perfect jump, you start guessing, you start getting vulnerable, confidence goes down.
Right. No, I like that a lot, and I like that you're not saying, okay, you have to look at this, you have to look at that, because I was always taught, I think it was front heel, and I just, it wasn't giving me very many options, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And so you guys just rep that every day for, I mean, how much time do you guys usually spend on base running every day?
Well, I always say, like, when I speak today, I'll say 15 minutes of practice. I don't know how honest that is. All right. Because we start to look at conditioning, and we can do baseball stuff during conditioning, but we can do athletic movements during conditioning. So I would consider conditioning a part of our base stealing. So if you look at some of that, we try to create that base. That with our guys, like, I don't want to talk about lateral acceleration during baseball practice.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about how to get in a better stance in baseball practice.
Okay.
I want to talk about leadoff, steps, returns, jumps. That's all I want to talk about. So when you can trim the fat like that, then we're like 15 to 20 minutes every single day.
Okay.
If we're playing a game, a lot of times, like right after their dynamic warm-up, we'll even just touch on it. We just do it every single day.
And you might have some keys from the other guy that you're seeing on the day, and that's kind of where you review it.
So we watch a lot of video. Anymore, you can find video anywhere. right? So we don't have fancy software, but we'll get, like, I'll look all over the internet, look for anything I can find to make game plans for the hitters anyway. So through that, just through their body type, if I can get lucky and get a pick off on video, it helps a ton.
Sure.
Sometimes scatter reports help, sometimes they don't. So I just want to know, like, what is his body type and what do I think he's going to do to stop us today, if anything. So we're always aware that teams are going to have a game plan to stop us. That doesn't mean we can't counter that.
Sure.
So we accept that this battle that we might have to play, and if the battle's not there, if it's much easier, we're going to be fine.
Sure.
But if it's really difficult, well, we're prepared for that.
What about dirt ball reads?
So, do you guys play on turf?
Sometimes. Have some turf, mostly grass.
So here's the thing: we used to be really good at them. When I was at Dayton, that year we led the country in stolen bases. We were good at dirt balls too. When we get to turf, like, catchers just pick it, and it's not that we can't be safe. It's what if you got a guy that's, if you give him enough pitches, he's going to steal and he's going to be safe. He's got the feeling that when he takes off, he's going to be safe. But 2 pitches before that, he got a dirt ball read and got thrown out. So then all of a sudden it becomes too high risk. However, when we play on dirt, we still want to be able to turn that switch on. Okay. So we'll work on it. I will say it went from, like, top priority in our game plan as this team that I coach at Wright State versus Dayton. It was like one of the top priorities. So it's fallen down some notches in how we work on it. We'll talk about it. We work on it more than we work on, like, sliding, but we don't work on it like we work on base stealing. I think the big thing is for us especially is, like, I think you can't throw drills for dirt ball reads. You can't, unless you got a pitcher, a coach. It's like ready to go from the mound. Like, our head coach is like, could still pitch in the big leagues probably if you wanted to. If you got somebody like that, it can dial it up. It's different. Most teams don't. Like, we didn't before Coach Sogard. So I think using a machine that has some adjustability for balls and strikes, and then blocking the catcher so you can't see the catcher, whether it's a curtain, it's a portable mound, something, so that when I'm getting a secondary, it forces me to see the angle of the pitch and not the catcher.
Interesting.
So.
I like that. I haven't heard that because we're usually either reading knees or whenever I was in high school, it was if you see glove flip, then go for, especially for your fast guys in high school level. And that was something that I took away. But that's a really good point.
Well, maybe it's also like, what if you accepted the whole year if the pitcher spikes a fastball, we're just not going to get a dirt ball. But if we see slow spin of the breaking ball at a certain trajectory, then we can go. So I think it just depends on the team you coach.
Oh, definitely. And so let's go ahead and move to second base. Now, this for a lot of people, they say this is the easiest base to steal. Not for me. Not when I was playing. I was so, like, I don't want to say nervous, but I was just anxious because was I getting off too far? Is there somebody behind me? How far can I get to be able? When should I steal? Like that. Those are all things that was going through my head. That's why I wasn't very good at it. But just walk us through kind of how you teach that a little bit.
No, I mean, when I hear you talk, I think those are real feelings that all base runners have. Like, and that's why, like, when we talk about stealing dirt or second, it's like, could we get you a couple more feet on your leadoff isn't nearly as important as can I get you comfortable. If I can get you comfortable, even if you're comfortable even a few steps back, and then I can teach you how to move. If I can teach you how to move to get to where we need you to get, then that fear of people being behind me goes away. And I think trusting me as if I'm, at first base, trusting me and our communication grows and how we look at each other, how we talk to each other, how I take your shin guard when you hit a double, like our quick communication. I don't have much time. So if I say whatever, you know exactly what I'm talking about and we can get on the game plan again. You're not alone. I think you can't send a guy out there alone. You can at the beginning, but once they start playing defense, like if you steal 30 bags, you're not just walking over people anymore. They're gonna have plans and they're gonna have plays. So we prepare for that. We prepare all of our guys, even if you might steal one or two, to have like the defensive capability if somebody could steal 30.
No, definitely, and that's putting a lot of pressure on the pitcher to be quick to the plate and make his good. Well, especially with the reputation that you guys have, that's something that T talks all about, this pressure burst fight, and I love that. I think that's a fantastic quote. But what do you do for just because you see a lot of varying leads at second base? You've got guys that basically walk to the shortstop and then back up, and then you've got guys that are right in line, guys that move around with outs. What's your process on that?
Well, generally we're in line.
Okay.
And the reason why is if guys get deep, they never walk all the way back up. They think they do, but they don't. Typically we're in line if we're going to steal. If we're not, if like our right fielder's up, big time hitter, or somebody's on fire at the time, and we don't want to, let's say there's 2 outs with him up and we're not going to steal third, then we're going to just go back. Or guy in second and third, guy in second just going to go back and try to take the angle around third. But we try to, there's really 2 things we do. We used to have like a medium depth and a deeper depth. And we just try to keep it simple. You're either in the baseline waiting for a feeling and an opportunity, or you're deep trying to score.
Okay.
Now, I met with a guy once. So through my site, I get to meet a bunch of cool people, reach out, right? And he said he was a math teacher, and he was showing me numbers, which I'm not a math teacher. So he's showing me some numbers based on like one specific, like if I take 1 step back, my odds of being safe go down. If I take 2, but he was saying if you're running straight to the bag,
right? Okay,
because you don't have to banana when you're stealing, so you're going straight to the bag. So he was talking about kind of like a hybrid between the depths that wouldn't hurt you on a stolen base, but would dramatically increase your round. And it was just a couple steps back he thought was optimal. For me, still, even with the information, it's like if I can get them straight, that way I know on a bang bang play that didn't go on our way, it wasn't because we were 1/2 step back.
Okay. And so you're starting them in line. Say a ball is to the outfield, and it's going to be a coast play at home. Do they immediately start their round? Is that what you're teaching?
Well, I think we don't necessarily talk about rounds necessarily. First, we talk about turning, like using the bag to turn. That doesn't mean they won't naturally get around. We're hoping we're athletic enough that we're not going to just like end up in the grass and hit the first base coach. So we'll just talk about you. Our goal is to stay in the dirt.
Okay.
If we can stay in the dirt without getting around at all and without stopping, that's a better job. So if the field is a square, rounding it would suggest we make it a circle.
Right.
Where we're talking about making more of like a stop sign out of it.
Okay.
So I'm trying to make sharp cuts off the bags.
Right. Minimize the extra steps.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that a lot.
And one thing we'll do is like have you ever seen those big bungees that have like a waistband to them?
Yes.
It looks like you're guiding like a pony around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'll put those around their waist and then pull them when they're hitting the bag.
Okay.
And it'll like suck them right back into the line to get the feeling of turning. I know talking about just turning the head, talking about leaning, all those things help specific players. But how can we keep you in the dirt?
Right.
You know.
I like that. And you said that you guys start every day with banded warm-ups. Is that every day, or is that just
if we start with? I'm sorry, with what?
With like your lateral stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Like with the bands on your waist. I saw that at the ABCA, and I was like, man, those are really good.
No, what I try to show at the ABC is like kind of like a buffet of stuff that we might do. Yeah. My goal was to get a high school coach, a college coach, anybody listening that they could say, okay, well, we could mix this in, and drills that it is more popular now, so it's easier. Like drills that you don't have to. I don't need 20 coaches watching. If I can give you a goal, so any drill works. So like, so we'll mix in some like banded starts or some partner races or some drills that like mess with their eye position to get them to look down to hopefully fix their first few moves without them thinking. Now, then I can walk around and I can say, hey, try to do this with your stance. Yeah. Try to do this. And so then just from there, let's say in conditioning. So it's not every day, but if we're doing conditioning, it'd be every day in conditioning. So it depends what time of the season. So we try to balance our conditioning to number one, it'd be like a technical focus.
Okay.
And then towards the end, we start blending into like now you're partnered up with somebody fast with same speed as you. And then by the end of it, it might be more of a team thing. We follow that recipe every day. Technical, so you know what you're thinking about. We stop thinking a little bit, and then we stop thinking altogether and get them to compete. Because at the end of the day, like you've got, and I think like a lot of these like velocity arm building programs, if you look at the formulas, they all involve you throwing the ball hard.
Right.
Whatever weight the ball is or whatever distance, you're throwing hard.
Right.
When we run, like if you were the most motivated guy and you're like, I need to fix my 60, and you go up and start running 60s, you're not going to get results because after you run one or two, you're just toughing it out. We don't want to ever just tough it out. I want tough kids.
Sure.
But I want to put them in a position where, like, if me and you started doing sprints in this short hallway, we can recover and run as fast as we possibly can again and again and again.
That's really good.
So that's kind of our focus in that recipe. So let's say it's a Wednesday and you don't feel like being there. Well, you partner up with me, and if I win, I'm going to talk about it till Thursday. And then all of a sudden, like, I tricked you to run hard again. Then we recover, and then we do it again. And our strength program is great. Cole does an awesome job with our guys. Just, it's a culture. And it's not even us. Like, put us aside. It's like Burdick, our right fielder, or our left fielder, Weatherford, our center field. Those guys have played a ton of games, and they're physical. They're big and strong. We have more guys, like Alders. I could name them all, but you look at these guys, are big, physical, strong guys that can kind of lead the way in the weight room and say, like, this is how we do it. You know, we need powerful guys. You combine that with mobility. You combine it with our speed training. All together get you a more athletic guy. So we try to do that every day to answer your question like the longest way possible.
No, I really am glad that you went in depth with that, because it feels like once you get to the season, there's so many things you can do, but I'm always looking for things that I should do. If that makes, because I could come to this convention, I could do everything, but I really couldn't. Like, I could try to do everything, but I'm just trying to figure out, you know, what would be the best, because we go through same dynamic warm up almost every day, and I'm like, okay, we need to switch some different things up. But if you don't mind, I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
Foot on the bag when you're turning. Does it matter?
Foot on the bag when I'm turning, like when I'm rounding the base.
Yes, rounding bases.
I don't care. Hit the inside of it.
Okay. And then what do you say to the kids whenever they see a line drive? What word do you tell them? If
it's a hit and run, they run.
Okay.
We get doubled off unless if it's so obvious. If I'm stealing, I'm hoping the hitter doesn't hit it.
Okay.
Because hopefully we're not going without a good jump. Hopefully the hitter's trained with the base runners. He knows what a good jump is.
Sure.
So unless there's two strikes. Now, if there's two strikes, again, it just depends how well you picked up the ball. So if I'm stealing without the steal sign, which for us is almost always, I don't make our guys peak. So the reason why is it's got to slow you down.
Yeah.
It's got to. If you were running a sprint, if you were running a 100-meter dash and you're in a close one and you look, it's got to hurt. I don't know. But people say it doesn't. It's got to.
Okay.
But let's say you don't find it. Then as a first base coach, I'm going to yell the spot on the field the ball is if it's in the air.
Okay.
If I don't say anything, or if I say like get on it or something, that means just go. So if you don't find it, I'm like the last line of resort. If I say right field, that gives you some place to look, and you know it's in the air. So come back while you're looking.
Okay.
So that's what we try to do. That's how we try to balance it.
And then what if so you're getting your secondary at second. So this is what I always say. Hey, we're going back on a line.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. That's
like
what we
that,
say
that's
too.
just like the baseline of, I know people
versus
say
like freeze. Yeah, no,
like
we go.
was,
I used to say freeze actually. Greg Lovelady, when I came over, he was big on making guys go back. And when you'd say freeze, you'd get the like, hey man, there's nothing you could have done about that one.
Right.
But then you find out when your mindsets go back, they can get back on that one. So I've changed over the last 3 or 4 years. We go back, and that is something you have to work at.
Yeah,
you
no, absolutely, and that's something that most still haven't heard before. And it's like, no, so having that conversation, I think, is vital. But Matt, I appreciate your time, and you've been an awesome guest today. And
thanks for having me.
Anything else that you want to throw out for our listeners?
No, I appreciate being down here. I appreciate you guys having me. I look forward to. I'm speaking here in like 15 or 20. Well, I'll change here in 15 minutes. I'll speak here on the hour, but I appreciate these guys coming out, and I always love talking about it. So thanks for your time.
Well, thanks, I appreciate your time.
All right, man.
Here's Ryan Folmar on building culture in your program.
Coach Folmar, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Well, how long have you been at ORU?
Man, I tell you, I've been here since 2003.
Okay.
I was here 9 years as an assistant coach under Rob Walton, who was the head coach at that time.
That's right.
Took over 6 years ago. So
perfect.
Been here since 2003. It's been a while.
Yeah. So you've been here a long time. A great guy to learn from as well, Coach
Absolutely.
Walton. And so you guys, and even when you were an assistant and continued on when you were a head coach, you guys have been just rolling.
Yeah, I've been fortunate throughout my career to be around a lot of really good coaches. Obviously, Rob being one of those guys, but Worked at Oklahoma State as well. Played for Gary Ward, who was an outstanding coach. Tom Holliday then took over. I worked for Tom, played for Tom as well. My dad, my background is he was a high school football coach for 35 years, and I have a brother that's a high school baseball coach, a brother that's a college baseball coach, and another brother that's a college football coach. So, I've been fortunate to be around a lot of those kind of guys throughout my career and kind of help me guide my path a little bit too. So, yeah.
Definitely. Well, I'm ready to talk with you just about the culture that you're building here, and then again with player development too. But let's go ahead and start with that. So, and I don't mean this in a bad way.
Sure.
So you guys probably aren't getting the Big 12 SEC guys, but you're still competing against those guys. So tell us about your process of who you're recruiting, or the type of guys maybe, or is it just you guys are really focused on player development aspect of it?
I think it's all those things. I think first and foremost, it starts with the recruiting process and the kind of players you bring into your program. And as you said, we haven't been blessed with a lot of big-time recruits, but I promise you we've had a lot of really, really good players walk through our programs. And a lot of high draft picks end up coming out of here as well. We talked about one of those guys today, and Jose Trevino, another local guy, Matt Watley, who's in the same organization, who's a local product as well. So it starts with that process. You got to make sure you get good kids. I think to fit the culture that we have, to fit the university that we're coaching under, I think first and foremost you have to make sure that you're bringing in good quality kids, and we've been able to do that. I think the second big part of that is not only do they have to be good kids, but they're going to have to be able to play some.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So I think our recruiting coordinator, Ryan Neal, has done an outstanding job. He and I started working here together in 2003, and I think we've established the kind of player that we're looking for, and bringing them into the culture that we've kind of created here over a long period of time. So we've been lucky, number one, to have good kids. I think the second part of that is to have good players. And then there's a big part of that that's development as well. I think when you do get good kids that are passionate about getting better, and you give them some good information, give them a great place to learn and to be around a good culture, I think it develops into a good player, and we've been fortunate.
Well, tell us more about your culture.
Yeah, Oral Roberts is obviously a non-denominational Christian university that believes in the whole person. And that's a big part of our culture, is to make sure that guys are developing a lot more than what they're doing on the baseball field. So they're developing in that part, but academically, spiritually, this is a great place for kids to learn and grow and to really end up becoming the best player that they can be. Our distractions are a lot smaller than a lot of other places and a lot of other schools. So we're very proud of the culture that's created here, not just by our program, but the university.
Awesome. And so the guys are listening. They're like, okay, Coach Folmar, you got to give us something that you guys are doing off the field to build the young man, because, we're in the young man building business.
Sure.
Now, whether it's with me with 14 to 18-year-olds or you with 18 to 22 to 23. But what are some things that you guys do to really make sure that they understand what the culture is like, what that aspect is, and then, and some different things as far as that goes?
Well, I really think it really develops out of two places. I think, number one, your program has to have a set of core values that you communicate on a regular basis. So for us, we use a simple acronym, ORU. We talk about outstanding effort. The R stands for a relentless pursuit, and the U stands for an unconditional commitment. So those are basically the pillars and the core values of our program. I think that's extremely important, that those be a part of what you try to do every day and try to build your culture that way. I think the second, and maybe as big or bigger a part, is you have to develop leadership within your program. And it doesn't have to be upperclassmen all the time, but the guys that have been through it have a chance to establish the culture in a lot of ways that a coach cannot. What happens in the locker room, what happens off the field, what happens in the dorm, what happens when they're eating breakfast or lunch or dinner together. Those are things beyond our control. But I feel like if you have a good culture and you understand what your core values are, your leadership can really instill those in all the guys in your program.
Definitely. And I love that you guys have those pillars. And I think that for any of the listeners that are out there, that's an easy way to make sure that, hey, these are the things that when you come here, or whenever you, for my instance, whenever you're a freshman throughout your senior, these are what we're looking for from a young man. But how do you how do you teach those? Like, how do you make sure that you almost over communicate those?
I think you over communicate, under assume, right? That's a lot of the analogy that people use. So again, we make it a part of what we do every day. Sometimes it's up front and it's in your face, and other times it's through subliminal messages that you may spread throughout. So whether it's signage throughout, whether it's something you talk about, I think there's a lot of different ways to do that, but you create the culture that you want. And we understand that this has to be intentional, it has to be deliberate, it has to be something that you work on all the time. And for us, a lot of that is, what you do every day, how you act every day. Those pillars are just really words. How do we put those words into action? So there's a lot of different ways to do it. All I can tell you is we're very deliberate, we're very intentional with how we approach it and what we do on a daily basis to make sure that our guys understand those pillars.
Oh, I love it. And Coach Folmar, it's truly is a pleasure and honor to be able to get to interview you today. And those are my two favorite subjects, culture and how are we building better baseball players.
There's a lot that go into it. And, it's funny when you start listening across college football right now, the three biggest names, I'm a huge football fan, so three big names are out there. You're talking Nick Saban, you're talking Urban Meyer, you're talking Dabo Swinney at Clemson, and the first thing those guys always talk about inside the program is the culture that they're trying to create. So,
and they're all three different,
very different. And I'm a guy that likes to read, so read a lot of John Gordon stuff or read a lot along those coaches. So, it's a continual learning process on how to make that better. But it's become a huge part of college athletics anymore, and we're happy to be part of it.
Definitely. Well, thanks for being on the show today.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Here is James Vilade on a coach's number one job.
Coach Vilade, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
Definitely. Round two. Absolutely. Last time you were on, we talked about all things Oklahoma State, but today I want to talk about things that you do and you do well. And I've only met you a handful of times, but you have an unbelievable ability to develop a relationship like that. So I really want to first off by, how do you do that? Like, what's your process?
I think it's just valuing people in general, trying to get to know people, trying to get to understand them, and vice versa. So I think that's always the easiest route. Is that when you do value somebody, it's easy to build a relationship.
Yeah. Well, and you're a genuinely nice guy.
Thank you.
Like that's absolutely true. And so another thing that a lot of us coaches have a problem with, and it's something that was kind of my thing last year of I need to do better at this, and that's learning names. And so, like, every single guy, I don't know if you guys talk all weekend, like every day or what, but every single guy that I've seen, you've shaken their hand, called them by their first name. How do you remember so many names?
You know what? I don't know. It's one of those things that, just growing up and being a player in the game and being around, and then actually coaching in Double-A with a lot of movement on the roster.
Right.
You got to really key in and make sure you know who everybody is. And I think that's an important way to show somebody, again, you value them, and then the trust builds from there.
Definitely. Well, we both are coaching in Texas, and we're both now in Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
And so I want to talk a little bit about what you just mentioned. And you talked about what the most important thing is that a coach needs to do. And what would that be in your opinion?
I mean, for me, the really building teammates is really important. I mean, teaching these guys how to navigate their way through the team as teammates, as guys that can build upon each other's strengths and advance even their own weaknesses. I think you really have to get to know your team. You really have to get to know your players. You got to spend time together, and to do that, you got to really spend time outside of baseball as well. And then I think sharing the game with everybody is important, whether it's your fans or the community or special needs community. So for me, building teammates is really important.
Definitely. And so you guys are getting guys from across the country. You're getting, I think your last couple of classes were top 10, top 25, like really, really good players. And so there is I would say, and this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's probably some ego there of, hey, I'm competing against this guy every single day, and I've got to win a spot for me to accomplish the goals that I want. So what is kind of your practical process of how you help them get over that and to be good teammates while still competing against each other?
I think it's always team concept driven. I think everything you do has to have a team concept. I mean, obviously there's individual instruction that goes into it. There's individual development, but the things you put in front of the players have to be team driven, have to be the team priority. And that's the accountability side of it for everybody.
Okay. And you also mentioned that you like to meet guys off the field. Guys like to do things together. So what are some things that you guys do in Stillwater that takes them away from the baseball field and just lets them get to know you and you get to know them?
Yeah, I think the one thing that Coach Holliday's done a really good job with is us in the community, sharing our time with those that are less fortunate, identifying community needs and really getting involved in it. I think there's a time where as a baseball player you kind of go to them in the community, and then during the season you want them to come to you.
Yeah,
because when you get into the season, you have your schedule. That's kind of the way it works for us, and that's one of the priorities that Josh has put forward for our team.
Oh, definitely. And so you talked about keeper of the game, and that goes right in line with what I was going to ask you next, which is you want to share the game with everyone because we love the game. That's why we're in it. That's why we've devoted most of our lives to doing it. And so talk to us about keeper of the game, and then talk to us about how that's led you to be able to share the game with those that are less fortunate.
Well, keeper of the game, for us, it's a foundation that I started in 2014. And what it allows us to do is it allows us to take kids with special needs and disabilities, give them the personal experiences, individual experiences in the game of baseball, also group experiences in the game of baseball. Mm-hmm. And it really just is a bridge between the special needs community and the game of baseball that supports existing programming like Special Olympics, Miracle League, Challenger League, Angel League. But we also create our own programming for kids to be a part of baseball with kind of like our Out to the Ball Game program or our National Game Ball program. Cool. So, for us, keeper of the game is exactly what it is be a keeper of the game. And then the component of sharing it with the special needs community, it's really, really taken off the last 4 or 5 years.
Oh, I love it. And so we actually had Ben Hochter was our student manager at Reedy the last 2 years. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to miss having him around this year. He was unbelievable. And he was really one of the best ambassadors of keeper of the game. And I love Ben. I would hire him in a heartbeat. And I know you have a special relationship with him too.
Yeah, I always refer to Ben as my boss. So
yeah, that's about right.
Ben is the one that keeps me on my toes, and he's got great ideas. He's at everything we do, and this is one of those things where for him, I always said if you want to watch him grow up and see all the pictures, if you look at the keeper of the game photo gallery, you can see him growing up the last 4 or 5 years, and see how much he's done, wonderful work for keeper of the game.
Oh, definitely. And before we go, the one I want to leave you with, and this is a little bit personal for me, and I know for most of our coaches, and it's a dad question. So I have a 4-month-old son, and your son, who has a great ability to play baseball, great young man. And if I want, not necessarily on the baseball part, but if I want to be able to raise him to be a great young man that still loves the game of baseball, whether or not he gets drafted or whatnot, but what was your process like growing up? Because it's extremely hard being a coach's kid. So tell us a little bit about that if you don't mind.
I guess it seems like a tough question for a dad, but for me it was actually a little bit easy. I just surrounded him with great people. When he was growing up, he got to be around guys like Wes Davis, who's on the coaching staff now for ORU, guys like Scott Coolbaugh, who's a major league hitting coach, guys like Jason Wood, who's a AAA manager now. And so he's really been around some incredible people that have mentored him, and that took a lot of pressure off me because he'd go to the field and these guys would take interest in him. Yeah, and it was awesome to see as a dad. So I could kind of step back and I could watch my kid grow and develop. And it was kind of the same way with other guys' kids. Like for me, when I was working with certain guys in professional baseball, and they'd have a kid that wanted to play, or even at Oklahoma State, having Donnie Walton for a year. I mean, my gosh, that's you talk about life changing for a coach. That was an incredible experience for me. But I think Rob had that trust that I could help his son, and I think as a dad, that's all you want. So I just surrounded him with good people. And I mentioned today in my talk about having a top 5, having a top 5 for yourself as a coach and growing in the game and growing in coaching, and then also you have to have a top 5 as a player, as a kid. You have to have your network.
And so your 5 is surrounding yourself with 5 people that make you better?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, guys that'll advance you in the game, make you better. Guys that'll call you back when you call. Guys that'll tell you the truth. Right. So that's an important part of it. It really is.
Oh, I firmly believe you're the 5 you hang out with. Like, you show me your friends, and I'll show you what you're going to be doing in the future.
No doubt.
But just back to Ryan for 1 second. So, what were the conversations like after games or anything like that? Because this is my perspective on coaches' kids. They're either the best kids or they're your biggest turd, if that makes sense. And there's probably not a whole lot in between. So what were the conversations like, and what did you really stress for him without being overbearing dad, which you're not? But I just want to make sure I'm not.
Well, I think the one thing about the example of after the game, there has to be a time where the athlete can let the game kind of settle in. And then there's teaching moments, and then for me it was more of education and learning talks versus you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do that, and then the conversations kind of carried on to him leading the conversations and kind of beating me to the things that maybe I'd want to tell him. But we definitely had a cool down period if the game didn't go great. So,
right. So he would come to
just
you,
like they do with the media,
right?
So,
right. Exactly. Well, Coach Vilade, I appreciate you coming on again, and you're always a pleasure to listen to speak. So if any of our listeners get the chance to watch you, you're a guy who wants to just change change life in general through the game of baseball. So I can always appreciate that. But thanks again.
Well, thanks again for having me on, John. Awesome job with the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Ahead of the Curve. Before you go, I'd love to be able to get in touch with you, and we have several different ways of doing so. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at AOTC_podcast. You can join the AOTC Coaches Facebook group, and if you want to be a part of the mini clinic emails, both of those links are listed below. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a rating or review to help others find and stay ahead of the curve.